This is more of a memoir than a poem, and I hope you'll forgive me for that. June 5, 1968. It was the last week of the school year in my sophomore year at Caltech. I'd always liked the Kennedys, but my roommate's friend was on Eugene McCarthy's staff, and I'd come to see him as the genuine voice of opposition to the war in Vietnam. It was Gene McCarthy, not Bobby Kennedy, who had taken on Lyndon Johnson and forced him out of the race. We really didn't know back then that Bobby Kennedy was more of a phenomenon than his brother. I took time out every day that week after classes to go door to door campaigning for McCarthy. On the day of the California primary, McCarthy and Kennedy both spoke in Pasadena, where I lived. Bobby spoke at the Rose Bowl to 20,000 people. Gene spoke at a predominantly black shopping center at Fair Oaks and Walnut Streets in Pasadena. Maybe 600 people were there. I went to hear McCarthy speak and watched Tom Saltonstall, my roommate's friend, hold the microphone for him. These were the rivers of our times, and the flood currents were high and deep. We simply did not know about the size, the number, or the venomous poison of the snakes that swam in our river. 2 months earlier, the bells had tolled for Martin Luther King Jr. Our neighborhood was predominantly black, with the Friendship Baptist Church on the corner playing King's "I Have a Dream" speech over the loudspeakers on the day of his funeral. It was considered paranoid to ascribe too much power, too much intention, too much coordination to the they, the nameless controlling ones with evil intent. It simply couldn't be so far off. There was wrong, but to assign it to a single cohesive aggregation of force was just paranoid. It just couldn't be. June 5th, 1968, the last day of finals. It was also California primaries election day. There was no sense in doing any campaigning. The polls would close in an hour. I just went to the speech and then hurried home to pack my bags. The next day I would leave for my summer job in San Francisco. Of course, we all stayed up to watch the election results. Akihiro, Bill, myself, Alan, David, Judson, probably others. Pizza, something else, celebration, and then goodbye. We watched as the night moved on and the results poured in. Winning California would have made McCarthy the primary challenger to Hubert Humphrey, but as the night wore on, the numbers turned to Bobby's favor. It was victory of big over little, I felt, but I could still support Bobby over the clear forces of evil, Hubert Humphrey and Richard Nixon. It was late, nearly midnight, when it was decided. The pizza was cold. We were all exhausted and listened to his short victory speech ending in, "On to Chicago." Okay, it would be Bobby. Let's get some rest. I was walking back to the bedroom and Bill was just about to turn off the TV when they said, "No, wait, something is happening back at the Kennedy campaign headquarters at Ambassador Hotel. We take you back there. He's been shot." "Who? Who's been shot?" "The senator." "Oh my God, the senator." "We don't know how badly. They're asking for a doctor. Can somebody make way for a doctor?" The TV camera cut to a long shot of the pandemonium on the stage where Kennedy had stood moments ago. A Kennedy assistant was miming a message to someone in the crowd, holding his index finger up to his temple and bringing his thumb down upon it 3 distinct times. Blam, blam, blam. Shock, compounded pain. Somebody had taken away something more precious than a single man, but no one was quite sure what was gone or who really had taken it. There was nothing to do but sleep. The drive north the next day was silence and the sound of the MG's motor. My little MG car didn't have much power, but it had a throaty roar. Shock. The daylight hours, foothill mountains, and all day the Central Valley sped by, but even the expanse of California could not stop the feeling of helplessness, the feeling of being boxed in, the feeling of being foam that is driven by a wave onto the shore. Anywhere that the wave decides to drive it, it will go. This, despite the foam's best efforts. This, despite the foam's best intentions. We found out many years later that the forces had faces. J. Edgar Hoover's face, the mobsters who owned the Ambassador Hotel's faces, the faces of people who put Sirhan in the right spot at the right time, and the face of the CIA hitman from the Acme security guards who actually fired the fatal shots. It was just not the act of a single madman. All we had to call our own was the music. Country Joe and the Fish, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Bob Dylan, and Allen Ginsberg, The Lovin' Spoonful, the Mamas and the Papas, Simon and Garfunkel, the Doors, Charles Bukowski and Smothers Brothers, Lawrence Ferlinghetti, Richard Brodigan, Jack Kerouac, Jack London, John Steinbeck, Woody Guthrie, Pete Seeger. The summer of 1968, our dreams had been assassinated. We didn't even know yet what was going to happen in Chicago, but I think I have an idea what American Jews felt like in the 30s when they heard about the Kristallnacht purges in Germany. Definitely a bad sign, with much more to come. If you want to know when the dream was killed, it was probably then.